Good day. Welcome to Financial Planning Explained, and I am your host, Mike Menninger, Certified Financial Planner. And as we always talk about, this show is designed to be an educational experience for the viewers. And I am very pleased to have as my guest, not only was he my first guest on my first show, but he happens to also be the first time I'm having a repeat guest on the show. So, Bryan Adler, thank you very much for joining us.
I forgot I was the first.
You were.
That was last October.
Somewhere, it seems like it.
Yeah, it was a cold, rainy day. It was great. We had a ball.
Oh, yeah, just wonderful. Cold, rainy day. Good day for ducks. But anyway, so what I want to do is today we're going to piggyback on last week's episode. Last week's episode, we had Jack Linville, who is a long-term care planning specialist, who also got involved in selling the insurance products and stuff like that. But he was probably outside of the legal side, one of the people that I've met as a professional who knows the industry that well. Well, I should hope after doing it for 20 or 30 years and having to deal with his parents going through it himself. But Bryan comes in from the legal side, and I've also referred clients over to Bryan because also as an attorney, really is very educational, and that's one of the things I like about him most, which is why I like to have him on my show. Very knowledgeable in the subject material. I guess you're one of what, 45? Is it 45?
There might be a few more now, certified elder law attorneys.
Yeah.
There might be a few more statewide now.
Not a lot, okay? So he's one of the few elder law attorneys certified elder law attorneys in the state of Pennsylvania. And you also practice in New Jersey too, right?
Yeah, Philadelphia metro area and South Jersey, really Princeton, South.
Okay. So we're going to take today and maybe look at it also from the long-term care planning, but also from the lens of the legal side. Plus, I believe you have people on staff who assist and guide people through the process. So
that's right.
Here I am talking about your company. You're a partner with Rothkoff Law. Why don't you tell me a little bit about your firm, a little bit about yourself, and then we'll jump in. And I know you've had the opportunity to see last week's episode. So let's pick it up and piggyback and jump.
Well, so that was a great introduction. I mean, you touched on it. I'm a board certified elder law attorney. And Rothkoff Law Group, we're an elder law firm only. We do elder care, we do elder care coordination, long-term planning. We don't do criminal law, we don't do medical malpractice.
Well, you do estate planning too,
We
though,
do
right?
estate planning, of course. And that's encompassed
Oh, of course
in
it
the
is.
tenet of elder law. That's exactly right. But we take a unique approach to it. So, and I used to be this guy, a traditional elder law attorney, focuses relatively narrowly. It's about guardianships, estate planning, Medicaid, asset protection, and getting a loved one in a
By the way, I will
Medicaid.
have you know, okay, it's a turnoff to me. A little bit a turnoff, and it's like, you know, the I don't know, like you get pigeonholed like attorneys.
Well,
Everybody hates attorneys,
a lot of a broad swath of the population.
Right. It's all about pulling the money out and letting Medicaid take over so that they're not going to take the money. The practicality of the matter is you're not going to get the same level of care.
That's the downside to it. And so I would have someone come into my old practice, which was 10 plus years ago. They come in and say, my mom needs care, and I'd say, well, she need a nursing home? Because if so, I can save this much money. That's how you justify paying me. Oh, well, no, she just needs some home care, or she needs assisted living. I'd say, okay, go pound sand. Like, I can't help you. I could do some estate planning, maybe I could do some asset restructuring, but the big nut isn't there. The big asset protection strategy isn't there. My practice now, and the reason I left my old practice and joined Rothkoff Law Group was because it's a care-first approach. It's looking at the senior, it's looking at the loved one, it's looking at the family, get the best care. And we've got 5 social workers on staff that coordinate care for our families.
Right.
We have an occupational therapist on staff that coordinates the occupational side of things. And we figure out how to pay for care. So it's no matter to me if you need a nursing home or assisted living or home care or hospice or palliative care. We'll coordinate it, then we'll figure out how to pay for it. Whereas the flip side of the model is we're going to go on Medicaid. We're going to get the payer source first and then cram it into an environment or a care environment that accepts that payer source.
So that's the immediate elder law attorney that you think, how am I going to take all of the assets away?
Yeah.
So we go on to Medicaid, and I'd like to dispel that as the first thing to do and squash it, because I actually kind of don't like it. It's saying, hey, mom, dad, whichever it might be, I'm going to pull all of your assets out so we get it. Meanwhile, all the money that you earned and saved and protected all these years, you're giving it to us, and we're going to give you lousy care for the rest of your life.
Now, don't get me wrong. There are a lot of elder law attorneys out there that do it in what I believe to be the right way, the care first approach.
Right.
And I want to stress that. There are a lot of great elder law attorneys that are traditional elder law attorneys. It's just my old practice, meaning when I felt I was a traditional planner, was too Medicaid focused. It was too asset focused and not person focused. I always want to clarify that, because I got a lot of good friends that are traditional elder law attorneys. They do great work. But yeah, you want to look at the person first. And Medicaid's not the end all be all. Frankly, it's becoming more difficult to access.
Right.
It's not as available as it once was. It's a political football. It's constantly being bastardized. You know, they cut here, it doesn't cover this, it doesn't cover that, it's more difficult to access. You want to look at, and to use the last guest, Jack, from last week, long-term care insurance is a tool in a toolkit. Medicaid's a tool in a toolkit. Private funds are a tool in a toolkit. If you only look at one tool and all you have is a hammer, everyone's a nail.
Right.
But if you look at it as everyone's a house to build, you're going to take your whole kit with you, and you're going to use whatever's most appropriate.
Well, so again, what people don't understand about Medicaid, and I use it as, it's basically welfare. It's only once you're out of money.
So you can't look at it that way. You're not necessarily wrong, but we have to look at stark realities, Mike. So yes, Medicaid once was considered welfare. They've since changed the name in Pennsylvania from Department of Public Welfare to Department of Human Services. But the reality is Medicaid, yes, it's a public benefit program. Yes, you have to be indigent to access it. But I asked the studio audience, I asked people who are listening, who has $15,000 a month to pay for a nursing home, or $8,000 or $9,000 a month to pay for assisted living? The average length of stay in those two environments is about 2.5 years. But the average length of the need for care could range from 8 to 20.
Right.
Particularly if you have a dementia-related issue. So yeah, people say, okay, 2.5 years, if I get a 3-year long-term care policy, I'm good to go. That's not how it works. You might have an onset much earlier, and you might have this 8-year trajectory. So the reality is that when you're paying $15,000 a month, even if you blend it down to 10 for 8 years, it's going to break anybody. How are you supposed to swing that? The reality is better than 80% of nursing home residents are on Medicaid. So you go into a nursing home, you might be solidly middle class. You might be solidly blue collar. A house, $500,000 in the bank with a retirement account, with a pension, Social Security, you're not going to swing that for long, particularly if you have a spouse. So I think the perspective that Medicaid is a welfare program, it's not wrong, but I don't think that it's fair to paint that brush with nursing home residents because the costs are so staggering.
Right,
because 3 in 10 are going to wind up there. How are you going to pay for it?
Well, so it also, what I've learned just from having different clients at different places, I recall one client going in, I want to say it was Shenandoah, but I'm not certain of that.
That's one, yeah.
Does Shenandoah have care all the way through?
Yeah, it's a CCRC
it does. Okay.
in Montgomery County.
Right. So it's actually right around the corner from our office.
Yeah.
So my understanding is that someone goes in there and they spend, call it $300,000 for a unit, and then they pay like a minor monthly rent, and that carries them through the rest of the way for care, doesn't it?
It can. So there's multiple types of models for that. That's called continuing care retirement community.
Right.
It's typically 3 levels of care on one campus. Independent apartments, which is nothing more than an apartment.
That's exactly what it is. It's
You
an
just live
apartment.
there. And then you have assisted living or personal care, which is more commonly referred to.
That's where they come in once or twice a day to make sure that you're...
They're helping you.
Right.
They're helping you with bathing, toileting, medication management, getting in and out of bed. It's people that need personal care or memory care, but they don't need a high clinical care support.
Right.
And then you have a nursing home. That's high clinical care.
Which is basically a hospital bed.
It is now. Yeah, if you look at the trajectory over the last 25 years, hospitals 25, 30 years ago looked like nursing homes today. Nursing homes 25, 30 years ago looked like assisted livings today.
Right.
It's been this clinical transition.
Right.
But a CCRC, you might have a buy-in where you pay $3, $4, $5, even $1 million. There are some that have big buy-ins like that. That's an option, and they'll give you a life care contract where if you pay your fees, and if you run out of money, they keep caring for you.
Right.
And depending on how you choose, depending on the community, You might just pay a fixed monthly fee, whether you're in assisted living, nursing home, independent living. You might pay what it actually costs. But they also have fee-for-service communities where you move in, you pay $3 or $4 grand for an independent living, you pay $7,000, $8,000, $9,000 for assisted living, you pay $12,000, $13,000, $14,000,
Right.
$15,000 for a nursing home.
Well, but see, the first one strikes me as a whole lot more predictable.
It's essentially a long-term care insurance policy.
Right.
And it's regulated by the insurance industry, or the Department of Insurance regulation.
Okay.
So it really is an insurance product. You're absolutely right.
So I just look at that as a solution for a lot of the people who aren't wealthy.
Yep.
Because the practicality of the matter is that, $10,000 a year or a month.
Yeah, a month.
Okay. You're talking somewhere $100,000 to $150,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
It does not take long to wipe out your assets. Now, one thing that people have a propensity to say, well, gee, I can't afford $10,000. Of course you can't afford $10,000. And you don't necessarily have to have an insurance policy that covers $10,000 a month.
No.
But because if you have Social Security, that might be $2,000 a month,
pension.
and a pension that's $2,000 a month.
Or if you got money in the bank.
Right. Then what you got to do is trim that a little bit. Exactly. Because then your assets will not be wiped out in 3 or 4 years.
And
they can last the duration.
That's the calculation. That's the calculus that goes into this. A CCRC isn't perfect for everyone.
Continuous care.
Continuing care, retirement community.
Okay.
That's 3 levels on
That's
one campus.
the Shannon doll.
Correct.
Okay.
It's not for everybody. There are limitations to it. Often that you might, the buy-in can be prohibitive for some families. It also limits your ability to engage in asset protection planning, if that's important to you. It can limit your ability to access public benefits, such as Medicaid in the nursing home, if you're in a facility that doesn't accept it. So
Okay.
it's not for everybody. It's just like long-term care insurance. It's just like that, as Jack mentioned, the hybrid product. Where you have to pay the annuity, where you do a big buy-in, you got to put a big chunk of money down.
Yeah.
That's great for some. It's terrible for others.
That's interesting. So you're describing to me different solutions. For instance, the person who may, for whatever reason, have had a heart attack or a stroke or chronic back problems or whatever might put them into long-term care may not be able to get a long-term care policy,
Correct.
but may be able to accomplish the same goal. For instance, popping Shannondale with $300,000 or $400,000, and if it's $1,000 or $2,000 a month for life, and they keep that thing, hey, guess what?
That's right.
That was their way of affording it.
And you're looking at those those facilities, those organizations, they're set up for someone who's 70, 75 years old to move in. You call in a long-term care insurance carrier when you're 75 and say, I need a policy, good luck.
Well, yeah, your premiums, if you can even get a policy,
Correct.
your premiums are just...
But a CCRC is giving you a very similar approach to it, and frankly, it could be a better approach. The longest long-term care policy I see written today is 5 years.
Right.
Gone are the days of unlimited daily rates. Gone are the days of unlimited plans. It's a fixed daily rate, fixed time period, with maybe an inflation rider, simpler compound.
Right.
So it's still a fixed pool of resources. Whereas with a CCRC, it may, a tool and toolkit, you have some certainty. You know that if you go broke, they're going to still keep caring for you.
Right, I know. That's a beautiful thing. So we're about ready to take a break, but I wanted to point something out that Bryan just said. It's a misnomer in the industry, or shall I say, it's a misnomer, common misnomer. We're asked to review long-term care policies by the children of parents who may need it. And we see that, let's say, for instance, it's $300 a day for 5 years. People are like, oh no, what do I do at the end of 5 years? Well, case in point, what it really is if you were to take $300 a day times 365 days a year times 5 years, that gives you a number of almost $500,000. That's a pot of money.
Correct. It could go 10 years if you use
right,
half
if
the
you
daily
use
rate. That's
exactly.
right.
So I just wanted to point that out.
Not a guarantee. Some policies don't. Some policies are fixed temporally, but that's rare. You're absolutely right. That $500,000 could last 10 years if you're using half the policy.
Right, and
that's
it's a pot. And the reason why companies got away from doing care forever is because if you think about the insurance company, there's no way of defining their risk. For instance, if they said, we'll give you $300 a day for life, is life 2 years, 5 years, 10 years? Whereas you indicated potentially 20 years.
Correct.
Boy, I'll tell you what, the insurance company loses big time on that one. Anyway, good opportunity for us to take a break. So please stay tuned. We'll be back with you in just a few moments.
Have you saved enough for retirement? Are you financially prepared for an emergency or unexpected event? Have you thought about your financial future?
Hi, I'm Mike Menninger, founder of Menninger and Associates Financial Planning. For over 20 years, we have been answering our clients' questions just like these as we develop unique and comprehensive financial plans tailored to meet their needs. When addressing your financial plan, we incorporate your entire financial picture, including taxes, estate planning, as well as investment planning and retirement planning. So call us today for a complimentary, no obligation consultation.
A unique approach to financial planning.
Welcome back to Financial Planning Explained with my guest, Bryan Adler, who is an elder law attorney in Pennsylvania and New Jersey. We left off talking real quickly about the continuing care facilities, and you're really knowledgeable in this, and I'm learning every day from you, and I think that's great. One of the other things I had a client have, and I also want to get to talking about the long-term care products again, and just the different things, because we talked about that during the break, which I think is very educational to the viewers. But one of the other things that I'd found is that, and you had indicated that the CCRC facilities are the same way, but I've seen a client go in, and most times what they do is they always look at your financials.
Yeah.
And they look at your financials because they don't want you to run out of money in 2 years.
They run a matrix. They look at your income.
Right.
They look at because if you got $10,000 a month in income, you're a retired cop, then a retired firefighter, and high Social Security.
Right.
They're going to be a lot less concerned what you have in the bank.
Right.
But if you are a widow and you didn't work and you're claiming survivor's benefits of $1,000 a month, they're going to want to see a lot in the bank.
Sure,
They look at
exactly.
your health and
Basically,
age
they
and
want to make sure that you're going to be there.
That's right.
And so what I thought was pretty cool is that they had a benevolence fund.
That's right.
Okay, and he actually ended up throwing $86,000 non-refundable money. Okay, through $86,000, which is almost in its own way the original life insurance policy.
Yeah.
So that what happened is that if he died, $86,000 remains in the fund, but if he runs out of money, then that $86,000 that everybody in the facility threw in continues with his care.
And so you look at it two ways. There are the life care contracts where you do a giant buy-in. There are some CCRCs where the buy-ins are comparatively, 86 grand is a lot of money, but they're comparatively small. And $50,000 to $80,000, $90,000 non-refundable. And yes, that's right. It goes into that fund for that very reason, because you have people that are going to go broke.
Because they lived longer.
Correct.
And so the funny thing...
And why push them into a nursing home to go on Medicaid if they could stay in assisted living?
Right, exactly.
So it's a lower cost, less restrictive environment. That's right.
Right. And so, it's kind of funny, and I never really thought about it, but in talking to Jack Linville from last week, he had said what happens here is the people who get the better care live longer, which is, you don't think about it, but you're like, duh.
That's right.
If you're getting better care.
You're going to live forever.
Exactly.
And we're doing so well keeping people alive. Not our minds. We can't do anything to keep our brains going. Dementia hits, there's nothing to do.
I'm going to disagree with you on that one, only from the perspective of, I remember having a client who ended up, they were really in just sort of poor health in every facet, and I don't mean to disagree with you, but what happened was when they went into assisted living, all of a sudden they're getting 3 meals a day, they're getting the medication,
So
they just whipped it right
You're
around.
absolutely right. Increased socialization, there's no doubt about that. What I was referring to is you get diagnosed with Alzheimer's.
Yeah, there's no recovery.
There's no medical intervention that does anything but, I'll go on a limb and say it does virtually nothing. There is a new drug, Aduhelm, that was just approved, but and I would invite you to our annual symposium with Dr. Jason Karlowicz is the keynote speaker. He's been all over the news about Aduhelm, and it's of really questionable effectiveness.
Is it designed for long term, or is it therapeutic once you have it?
It's infusion. I don't know enough about it. It's infusion based, it's very expensive. I think it's like in the hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, and the efficacy is very questionable. And that is considered the biggest breakthrough in the last 30 years of Alzheimer's treatment. It barely works. Jason doesn't.
Let's spend a couple $100,000 on something that doesn't really work.
For some, it might really work. Dr. Karlowicz is much more skeptical. I'll get you a ticket to the symposium. I think you'll really like it. He's fascinating.
Yeah, that'd be cool. That'd be cool. So anyway, we're talking a little bit about the long-term care products. And I know that my mother has a for life product.
Which, good luck getting that now.
Oh yeah, you can't.
can't.
It doesn't exist. I think she got it in like 2001, 2002. And I remember 15 years ago that the insurance companies, and there were probably about 10 players, but there were about 4 or 5, GE, Transamerica.
Genworth.
Which is, well, GE is now Genworth.
Okay.
Okay.
Conseco.
Not Principal, but there were a handful of them. And so, and they all prided themselves, we've never raised our premiums to our existing customers. And what they would do is next year, you buy a new policy, you're paying for the old people, but now they're beginning to do that.
And that was a common sales tactic where they would say either we've never raised premiums or your individual premium can never go up. Because you can't raise, by law, you can't raise an individual's premium.
Right, but you have to, a whole class. When they have to go through the application
and that
to
can
the
be very
state.
misleading.
However, you know, and she's been concerned, this is my mother, about potentially needing to go into a facility.
Sure.
And she's like, you know, but these premiums are just climbing and climbing. And so I looked at her policy, I'm like, holy cow, you got yourself a Cadillac.
Oh, you
know,
can't get rid of it.
I'm like, and oh, by the way, you don't want to pare back on your benefits. You know, because I'm like,
It's always a ham-fisted approach that they send out those illustrations. Keep your policy this. It will reduce your policy premium, and it destroys or we'll give you a check for $20,000. If you had the policy for 15 years, you paid $10,000 a year for it. You get a little pittance. I look at these things, I say, don't ever pare back on policy.
I've had that with clients before, and I'm like, no, you don't want to do it. The only thing that I have actually done, because it was an affordability issue, is, you know, given their advanced age, they were pushing 85, and the daily rate was already accumulated to be pretty high.
Where it's going to cover it, right? You can
Right,
forfeit
I
the
said, you know
inflation.
what? I said, I took the compounding off.
Sure.
Which made it affordable to them.
There's a fairness to that, and you
Right.
have to look at it. You know, that's right. If I've got somebody that comes to me and says, "Look, I can't afford this policy anymore," all right. Well, you look at that circumstance. So if they just say to me, "I don't feel like spending $5,000 a year, $6,000 a year," and I'm looking at $1 million in the bank, I say, "You're a fool."
Right. There's can't afford and don't want to afford.
Correct.
You know,
Exactly
and
right.
you know what? You figure out a way. You figure out a way to afford it because you're right. They don't want to afford it because you're right. The premiums are getting high.
Well, and Jack made a good point last week. 0.6% of a $1 million portfolio is the
chump change.
The premium. No, it's a chump change. If you're getting even a 1% or 2% return, it's paying the premium.
And that's not right.
You're barely growing. Like if you're getting 2%, fire your advisor.
Right.
And but that's still enough to pay the policy and then some. So I think that's a very valid point there. It's peanuts.
Oh, it is. That absolutely is. And you know, and that's a good way of looking at it. Not people don't always look at it that way. They see the check for $10,000 or $6,000.
Hire us. We're their eyes. We're their wide-angle lens.
It is. And you know what? The big difference between us and the clients, and I tell them this all the time, and it's not to be mean, but I tell my clients all the time, I say, I got one giant advantage over you. I said, I don't have the same emotional connection that clouds judgment. And that's not to say that, you know, that their judgment is bad or anything else, but they don't see it from the outside. It's a different lens.
And they need that advice because they need to have, you know, I mentioned the hammer and everything looks like a nail.
That was a great analogy.
You know, you look at these long-term care products, you look at asset protection strategies like irrevocable trust, you look at CCRCs, look at a traditional long-term care policy. It's great for someone that has a lot high income or a ton of money in the bank. But if you don't have either of those, you're out. You're out of the game.
Right.
Furthermore, they're more difficult to get now. Jack mentioned those hybrid products where you have to put $300,000 into it. That's great if you got the cash for it.
Right. You need 300 grand.
Sense. But then there's consequences to buying an annuity. You put money into an annuity, it's not like you can go to the bank and take it out tomorrow. There might be surrender penalties.
You're right, exactly.
There's all kinds of
There's
issues
that, and you
associated with
lose
it.
some of the benefits. I mean, the
Correct.
purpose of an annuity is for the insurance company to guarantee a lifetime payout.
Correct. So
But-
there's ups and downs to everything. We do an irrevocable trust. That's an abdication of control of your assets. You're
Right.
gifting it
You
away.
lost it. You
There's
lost
wins and losses there. There's no silver bullet. It's you don't pull one lever all the way. You pull a little bit on all of them.
Ah, you know what? That's right up my alley because, you know, the key I've always said in financial planning is to build alternatives and flexibility and everything else because the only thing you can guarantee, you ready?
Is you have no idea what's coming.
The only thing you can guarantee is nothing's guaranteed.
That's right.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's all about planning. I've got a very good friend who calls the 3 Ps, and I'm going to use an arguable, inappropriate word, but he says the 6 Ps.
7.
7. Proper planning prevents piss poor performance.
Proper prior planning prevents piss poor performance.
is.
That's 7.
The 7 Ps. and there's truth to that.
There's absolutely truth to that. Nobody plans to fail; they just fail to plan.
Exactly right.
I mean, that's an old
That's a Ben
cliche,
Franklin, yeah.
but it's the truth.
I couldn't agree with you more. It never hurts to have a conversation, because you're going to sit down and say, oh, this policy is going to cost me $10,000. Okay, well, a trust is going to cost me this, or an annuity is going to cost me that, or a CCRCs. You put a plan together. My job as an elder care attorney isn't to get someone on Medicaid, but I may. It's not to put money into a trust, I may. It's not to advise someone to get long-term care insurance, but I may. It's about figuring out how to get someone the best care possible,
Right.
how we can pay for it without going broke.
Absolutely.
It's about tools.
Absolutely, and that's exactly what we do, but just from and not necessarily in the elder law planning or elder planning or long-term care planning, but it's all of the financial planning. Inevitably, and I always joke and say this, but people have all kinds of goals, and most people, including myself, I have $10 worth of goals.
Yeah.
I got $3 in my pocket.
That's exactly right.
So what ends up happening is that you have to sacrifice some to get the others, or you got to figure out, how can I increase the amount of money in my pocket to afford the $10? I either got to bring the $10 down to 3, or I need to bring the 3 to 10, or everything gets sacrificed a little bit.
You plan early and you be patient.
The earlier you plan, the better chance you have.
You touched on it last week when you said to Jack, the difference between retirement planning and long-term planning is retirement, everybody wants it. They want to save for retirement.
Right, nobody
Long-term,
wants it,
nobody
right.
wants to save long-term. Retirement planning, you said it yourself. You can't start saving for retirement at 65. You shot
Right.
yourself in the foot already.
Exactly.
It's the same concept as everything else.
Absolutely.
You don't want to come rushing to me to get powers of attorney in place when your loved one is unconscious or has dementia. It's
Right.
too late.
A little bit on that, right. So, Bryan, we're out of time. Is there anything that you want to really, because we're really out of time.
Yes, we are.
So I tell you what, worst case scenario, I get you on here again.
That's fine.
I mean, this is great.
And I want to thank everybody for out there watching today, and we hope to do it again, answer more questions.
Love to. This is Bryan Adler. You can see his name up on the screen. Rothkoff Law. What's your website?
Rothkofflaw.com.
There you go.
It's
Rothkoff
easy. It's right
Law,
up
right up there. So I thank everybody for joining us this week. I hope you learned something and picked up and piggybacked on what we saw last week with Jack Linville. Long-term care planning is a very, very important subject, and it's a component of overall financial planning. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you again, Bryan. I look forward to having you again, and we'll see you next week. Have a great week.